Fighting games have come a very long way in which how throws worked. Can you imagine dealing a throw and your opponent can't tech it? Or a throw that does a lot of damage? Well, let's dive into this and see where we came from. In Street Fighter 2, since this is the game that first introduced throws, it's not crazy to say that this game had a lot of nonsense with it. Street Fighter 2, to perform a throw, you have to press medium or a heavy attack while pressing forward or back to throw your opponent. Once performed, the character will initiate one of two types of throws. One of them is your standard generic throw, which will toss the opponent. The other is called a hold, which the player will have to mash the attack buttons to deal additional damage to the opponent. Holds were dangerous because of how they let go of the opponent, which can lead into you doing a very strong strike throw mix-up. Throws in Street Fighter 2 were barbaric because of something called proximity guard. Certain moves will force you to block, and the distance of where they're initiated depends on the move that you do. Because of this, you are glued into a guarding state, and there are several ways you can exploit that. Let's say you playing Zangief and you do a jumping attack, you freeze your opponent, and then you just throw them. Only few characters had a air throw too, which was Chun-Li and Guile. But let's say you wanted to break the throw so you can stop them from spamming it on you. Unfortunately, there was no way for you to break throws in Street Fighter 2. You had to ultimately hold that and play around the strike throw. Now, this was an extremely powerful version of throws in this version of the game. But enter Street Fighter 2 Super Turbo. In this game, they introduced something called throw softening. Throw softening is when the opponent throws you and you attempt to do a throw at the same time. The game will have you still being thrown and you will still take damage, but you take less of that and you land on your feet. The game throwing you a bone for at least trying to tech it. But from here on out, we can see what future installments were attempting to do around this one mechanic alone. And we can kind of see how barbaric it was. Future titles will try to change around to make it a lot more fairer than just getting beat up and thrown every day. In Street Fighter Alpha, there are actually some characters whose throws can convert into combos, and we'll touch more about that later. For some characters, some throws actually will not deal any damage if you attack them for some reason. I actually don't know the specific reasons. But an interesting thing on top of that is when you get a hold throw, you can now soften them by mashing the attack buttons. This will make them weaker and you can escape them faster. In Alpha 3, they included universal air throws throughout the entire cast. Everyone is able to air throw. Some people would consider the Alpha series a little anime, which it kind of was a little bit. A lot of anime games, you can say, come from the building blocks of the Alpha games. But something completely interesting that they did in this game is that they added a throw startup animation, and it was a dedicated button as well. Something that will be missing in the next game. Throw softenings was still the result of teching the throw. And if you choose X-ism, your throw was longer by 4 pixels. We are now slowly approaching the modern era on how most fighting games will handle throws here on out. In Street Fighter 3 New Generations, in this game, they did something very peculiar. First, all universal air throws were gone, and they actually went back to doing the traditional throw button, which is pressing forward or back plus a medium or heavy attack. Strangely, throw softening and throw teching were completely gone. The game will not allow you to tech throws whatsoever. And if both players were to do that, whoever did theirs first will be the winner. Or if the game does it at the same time, then I believe it will prioritize player 1 if you do it at the exact same time. And on top of that, characters are no longer able to combo after their throws. That too was removed. Then enter Street Fighter 3 Second Impact. This game does something which is the first step in the right direction of modernizing it. First, they brought back throw teching. Now, when you tech the throw, both players will return into neutral, which is something we see in modern games. However, one thing that is interesting as well is that the defender who teched the throw will gain a small amount of meter, which is a good job on you teching the throw reward. Now we enter the game that modernized how we understand how throws work, and it's the king himself, Street Fighter 3 Third Strike. In Third Strike, they introduced a specific, now modernized way to do throws. It is by pressing both light punch and light kick, and you have a dedicated button to do a throw. The character actually has a startup animation, and if whiffed, you have a whiff animation. When you throw your opponent, if your opponent decides to tech it, then both characters will go back to neutral, just like how they did in Second Impact. Regardless if you're attempting a forward throw or a back throw, so long that you press the throw button, your character will tech it. Throw damage is fixed, so there's not a difference in damage, something that Street Fighter 2, since the game is riddled with interesting bugs, damage is a little random, and holds are completely gone still. They will never return. Some characters may have throws that do multiple hits, however, it's not a hold that you have to mash buttons to gain more reward. Most fighting games do this, and that's how we understand that. However, what if I told you that there are some games that took this idea and decided to implement it in different ways? From this point on, I wanted to use Street Fighter as a basis for where we can see what other games took this mechanic and took their spin on it. For starters, in the King of Fighters series, you perform a throw just like how the old Street Fighter games would do it, which is by pressing forward or heavy attack, and if you're close to your opponent, you will perform a throw. And if the opponent decides to break it, you return to neutral. But what if you're someone that misses the days of the Alpha series where certain characters were able to get a combo after a throw? I did say we'll come back to this. You're in luck. If you're a big fan of those, then here are 2 games that reward you for getting a throw. Enter the Guilty Gear games. In Guilty Gear Strive, this was actually the first game that incorporated a dedicated throw button that is forward or back dust. It is also the first game that gives you a startup animation and a whiff animation as well. What's interesting is that throws will also be reversals in Guilty Gear Strive, and they will also be command throws as of Guilty Gear 2.0. When an opponent performs a throw and you break that throw, you return in neutral. And if a throw is successful, you don't really get that much reward from that. That is until, if you want to spend 50% of your resources, you decide to do what is called a Roman cancel. The Roman cancel cancels your attack, and it puts you back in a neutral state, immediately allowing you to convert into strong combos or strong block strings. Because of that, you were able to get a lot of reward off of just throwing them, which is a lot more dangerous than something like Street Fighter. Imagine dying and losing the whole game because you ate a throw versus Street Fighter 6 being throw looped. However, there is a game that takes this to the next level. That game is called Blaze Blue. In the Blaze Blue games, the way how they handle throw is very unique compared to the other games, and it's a little bit more complex as well. For starters, in Blaze Blue, most characters can get a huge combo after you confirm a throw. If they can't, then they have to spend meter resources like Guilty Gear to convert into big combos. But it is the fact that most characters don't need resources, unlike Guilty Gear. In Blaze Blue, throws can be used as frame traps and counter throws. Counter throws if you throw someone during their startup animation or recovery. Due to that, the throw is untechable. Characters can also be thrown during hit stun and block stun. This is called a purple throw. However, the tech window is actually larger. If you attempt a command throw while they are normally untechable, just like other games, if you wanted to do this in the middle of hit stun or block stun, you will be granted the ability to break it with the same amount of long window that would be a purple throw. If you're someone that likes to preemptively attempt a throw, there's a system called throw, reject, miss, which is when if you try to preemptively throw within 30 frames before the throw is actually performed, it is now unbreakable. This is implemented to stop existing players from mashing the throw input preemptively to break through. This is also to render some powerful throw reject option selects to make it harder to execute. Now, what if you're someone that does not like being able to just confirm into big damage off of a throw? Maybe you're someone that prefers the King of Fighters and Street Fighter way, where you just get your fixed damage. However, you don't have that good reaction and you want the window of teching throws to be more forgiving, kind of like Blaze Blue's purple throw. There is a game, and it's called Grand Blue Fantasy Versus. In the original Grand Blue Fantasy Versus, you can actually tech late, allowing you to break it. However, the game will put you in a disadvantaged state, and you recover much later than the aggressor. And you as well take chip damage, but you can't lose a round from this. But in Grand Blue Fantasy Versus Rising, they changed it to where if you tech the throw without pressing the throw button, you will actually have the same effect as the original game if you teched it late. You have to tech it with the actual throw button to return to neutral. But the throw window in Grand Blue is still much more forgiving than any other games. Now, let's say if you're someone that wants to skip neutral and you want to hit your opponent from mid-screen and convert off of something. Well, there are games like Melty Blood type Lumina. Your character will actually perform a forward dash that looks exactly like the run animation, which actually can be very interesting because it's indistinguishable of your run animation. So you can trick your opponent into thinking you're performing a dash to close in the gap, but you're actually throwing them. There are other games like this, like Blaze Blue Cross Tag Battle, which functions like this, and Dragon Ball FighterZ Dragon Rush. I mentioned Melty Blood not so long ago, but this game does another thing that the other games do not do. If the aggressor were to perform a throw and the defender techs a throw, the defender actually recovers 3 frames earlier than the aggressor. None of the other games I have mentioned does that. And this leads me into my very final point, that there are some games that takes some of the fundamental rules, like how does a throw work, like Melty Blood, in a very strange and unique way. Let's say, for example, throws can still get you when you're crouching, unless your name is Mortal Kombat. In the Mortal Kombat series, throws are actually considered highs. They can be ducked. However, they can only be ducked if the opponent is not blocking. Unlike the other games, where teching the throw is one button in Mortal Kombat, you have to tech depending on which direction the opponent is throwing you, either back or forward. If they perform a forward throw, then you have to tech it pressing back. And if they do a back throw, you have to tech it going forward. So, interesting enough, that game completely changes how you even fundamentally handle throws, because the other games you just simply break it with the same input. Now, there are other games that you can duck the throws, and that is all 3D fighting games. All 3D fighting game throws can be ducked. And funny enough, they all track you if you're sidestepping. However, they have some unique differences from that point on. In Soul Calibur, they only have one throw animation. And when you break the throw, you have to be pressing forward or back to break the specific throw that your opponent is doing. And even if you break that throw, your character will receive a little bit of chip damage, but you cannot lose the round from taking throws. In Tekken, throws have a distinct animation between one arm and two arms. One arm throws, you have to break with one punch button, and they track. While two arm throws, you have to break with two punch buttons, and they do not track. Throws cannot be broken if you are performing an armored attack, and they can also interrupt strikes as well. In Virtual Fighter, they will always lose the strikes, no matter how late you do it. To break a throw, you have to break it based on the aggressor's last input that they had pressed. For example, if the throw command was half circle back, then you have to press back to break it. Or if they did a forward throw, you also have to press forward and then press the throw button to break it. Then lastly, Dead or Alive. Every character can perform a crouching throw, and every character has multiple different types of throws as well. It's a very throw heavy game. Interesting enough, you cannot break any throws in the game so long as it's not a neutral throw or a chain throw. Those are the only types of throws you can break. Everything else you cannot. And in Dead or Alive, strikes will always beat throws if done at the same time. Well, we have gone through several different types of throws, and I wanted to know if you had learned something. I've been talking about throws for almost 18 minutes, so I want you guys to go tell your friends if you learned something. And if you did, and you like this whole journey about learning something as stupid as throws, leave a like. Tell your friends, comment on something that you want me to go dive into, and I'll hear from you guys next time. This is Kyron Dudebro signing off. You guys be easy. Take care.